I'm Adi Segal. I think I told you yesterday I'm a med school dropout or a recovering med student. And over the last 2 years I've been involved in health tech. We spun off a company for Mount Sinai. And before I went to med school I worked at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Has anyone heard of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society? All right, so it's the third largest cancer support organization and the largest blood cancer organization. And what I was doing there was healthcare economics and access to care research. And what that really boils down to is price of care, value, and innovation, and how different stakeholders actually define that. And when you get payers, patients, pharma, and providers in the same room, the only consensus is that there's no consensus about those definitions of value innovation. For example, if you have a rare blood cancer, and there's 500 of you in the entire country, anything to help you is valuable. If you're a pharmaceutical company, there's no way you are making a drug for 500 people. So you can understand, and then payers and providers fall somewhere in between on that spectrum also. So that got me thinking, and then as you all know, when you go to med school, one of the things you have to do is actually go and get some lab work done to prove that you have all the immunities. So MMR, chickenpox, all the different things that either you were vaccinated against as a child or actually had. For example, who here has had chickenpox, just out of curiosity? Wow, that's actually a pretty big showing for people who were born after 1991. So anyway, that got me thinking at that point, okay, so you need to get this blood panel. It's not really covered under any plan. I had a Connecticut exchange plan at the time, and I was working in Westchester, New York, if you know where that is, but it's really on the northern border with Connecticut, southern border with Connecticut. So anyway, we're right outside New York City. The point is, I called every place for 2 weeks looking at what it costs to get your blood drawn, because really with a blood panel, it doesn't even matter the quality of care because they're probably all just sending it to Quest or LabCorp anyway. So what you need to know there is, what does it cost? And it was abundantly clear at that point that there is no marketplace for this, for anyone who's spending cash. And this is a much larger problem. In America today, we spend about $500 billion on out-of-pocket costs every year. So that's outside of insurance, that's outside of whatever the government is paying, $500 billion. When you talk about an industry or a total addressable market, anyone heard that term before? No? Okay, so there we go. Total addressable market is when you're building a product, how many people you can reach, or ultimately how many people you can reach, and the size of that market. So $500 billion is actually huge. And then if you really talk about the whole healthcare economy, it's expected to be about a $10 trillion industry in the next few years. So that got me thinking, when I was in med school, we need to develop a platform where you can actually just shop around in a consumer-friendly way. And that's what we've built today. I took a little break in between. I developed the idea in med school, then went on to do some other health tech stuff, and came back over the last year to build this product. So I'll walk you through it, but before that, I want to just take a quick poll. How many of you are paying out of pocket for something in healthcare today? It can be anything. It can be your copay. It can be the full appointment. Most of the room, that's more than 50% of the room. And we're trending in America up in the direction of, right now, anyone on private insurance is about 43% of American adults are on some kind of high deductible plan. And that's just trending upwards because plans are getting too expensive. And people realize actually if you save your money in something like a health savings account, you can actually save a lot of money over time and just use it when you need it. So you bundle it with a catastrophic plan. Unfortunately, in America, you can't, if you're over 30, they don't call it a catastrophic plan, but we should work towards something else. We can talk about that another time. So here we are. How many of you shop on Amazon? Everybody shops on Amazon. How many of you use Uber? Airbnb? Okay, so the whole room today thinks in a consumer mindset where you want to know price and quality before you buy something. Why have we settled for something different in healthcare? It's the only place where you give in a form of payment and don't know what you're getting or how much it costs before you actually pay. Could you imagine if Beth got that beautiful blouse, let's say at Nordstrom, right? And she went up to the checkout counter and gave them some card, and they swiped it. They said, okay, we'll see what's covered and send you a bill for the rest. We would never settle for that. She may have just bought a $5,000 blouse, and she wouldn't know. And so we would never do it that way. We would never do that for food. Restaurants is another good example. There's a menu. You know exactly what you're getting and how much it costs. Basically every other industry. And on top of that, physicians have a problem. You don't know what you're getting when someone walks in. So right now, physicians expect, and all providers, this is an aggregate, expect to only make 30 to 40% of what they're billing. This is outside of direct primary care, because you actually know there, and that's the model that we're going towards. So if you send out a bill, 30 to 40%, which is one of the reasons why it's so high. So we're, again, building a marketplace where you actually know what you're getting and when you're going to get paid. The other thing is not just how much you're going to get paid, but the fact that you have to wait 60 to 120 days to actually get that money. And if you have to run a practice, that's an extremely long time to wait to keep the lights on and to pay the people who are working in your clinic, let alone yourself. But if there was a system where patients would pay ahead of time and release the money right after the appointment, and of course they would have access to their electronic medical record that they own the data, not you, wouldn't that be great? So that's what we're working towards. Our company is called SeeThru, and this is not a pitch, so I'm going to stop talking in a second. I'm just going to run through it, and then I'd rather just open it for questions because there's probably a lot that has to do with this. So the company is called SeeThru. This is a model of our platform. We've already done a transaction. I didn't mention up until now, we are built on blockchain technology, which is a whole other talk. So we're not going to get into blockchain now, but I'll be around later if you want to ask questions about that. But let's just look at what happens. This is very similar to the Amazon experience. So and before we go on, we'll just tell me if your algorithm is different. For most people on Amazon, what they do is they put in their search terms. And then if you have Prime, so you're part of this special membership, you click Prime. Everyone agree so far? Yep. Okay, and then you don't want crappy products. So what do? You click 4 stars or more. So now you have filtered for only what other people have said are good products. And then if you are price sensitive, which most of us are, as an educated consumer you would be, you sort low to high. Does that match most people's algorithm?
Not quality.
You don't care about quality. Okay, so med students only care about price. So you end up with like the crappy Bluetooth headphones, but they're still Bluetooth headphones, right? So the low to high thing is really important. So that we'll look at that in a second. So you guys are a different type of shopper than, say, Joshua, who's now in the corporate startup world. Corporate startup is anyway. So most people are trying to find that intersection between price and quality, because what is that? Value. And that's what we're going for. Right now, you cannot shop for value in healthcare. So you sign into our platform. You put in your search terms, and here we're going to go for primary care. When you get there, you can see where you're located. Does anyone recognize where that is? New York. Good. That's Manhattan. Can you guys see that, by the way? Is it OK? Should we turn off the lights, or is it? Can you? You can't see it. Better? OK. So you come into the platform, and now you're going to look for where you are. Because we're on your mobile device, we know exactly where you are. Okay? We know the practices that are in the area. We have quality. This is something that we will develop a good data set over time, because right now in the States there's no good data set on quality. Government has tried to track certain things. There are all sorts of like vitals.com, lots of websites out there, but usually the people who write on those are really just people who have bad experiences, and then maybe other people they paid to write out there. But if we're on your phone, we can track this just like when you get out of an Uber or a Lyft. How was your ride? And we can ask a series of questions that get at certain answers. And then price. And in this, you can sort for different ways. So if you're just a price person, maybe you're going to go around here, but the quality might not be as good. Right? If you are just a quality person, maybe you'll pay a little bit more and willing to travel. Maybe you'll find the cross section somewhere at, let's say, AMG Medical Group. And so if you go to AMG Medical Group, some of you, if you read anything about DPC, especially in New York City, you may have heard of Dr. John Muni. There's lots of New York Times articles about him. New York State tried to sue him at one point. Because they said he was running an insurance company, and he said, no, I don't cover my patients if they get hit by the bus and show up in the ER, right? He has a membership, which is different, and eventually they let it go because they realized what DPC actually is. And so what's cool about the platform here, though, is that we tell you exactly what's included and what's not included. And by the way, when I was showing this to Jules last night, she said, oh, that's great. I said, yeah, you won't be able to charge difficult patients a little bit more now. She said, that's OK. I love what you're doing. So I thought her model right now was interesting. You have a range, but you give a price. As a consumer, I actually wouldn't do that because I actually want to know my price before I go in. Just like the same reason, you see this actually in New York all the time. Tons of yellow cabs going by, and people are literally standing in the rain waiting for their lift because we know the price beforehand. And the same thing should be said for healthcare. So at this point, we've given you some information for free, but we need to book the appointment. You're going to book your appointment. You're then going to scan this code or press the button right there, and you will be booked. Once you're booked, that goes on a blockchain record. Again, for another time, we can talk about that. And you go on over to the clinic. Before you go to the clinic, you can do a few things. You can chat with the doctor. You can cancel the appointment. These are just a few of the features we offer. You can also update your healthcare record. Now, one thing to know is that we are not an EMR company, and we don't want to be an EMR company. So this would be another channel partner who actually is just doing EMRs on the blockchain, which is to say you would own your record, and it might be on a private blockchain, so it's not publicly available, but it does exist, so it's your ownership and not stuck in some kind of data silo at either a private healthcare practice or a health system. So you can look at this. You can update your recent activities. Also, since we're plugged into your phone, we know certain health statistics about you. When you show up, this is the important part, is that once you've paid, you've technically paid, but your money is held in escrow, you need to check in. Because at that point, the doctor could say, yeah, I treated the patient. And they could process or pay people to sign up and process, say, 100 people in one day. We want to know that you actually get there. That protects you as a consumer. So when you show up, you have a personal identification code. You get scanned, and that means you're there. We're not talking about whether you were satisfied with your visit. This happens beforehand. This is just protecting you and the doctor. You were there. The doctor knows they're going to get paid whether you're pissed off about the quality or anything in the end. OK, at the end of the visit, then it's a normal healthcare visit. At the end of the visit, the provider has to do two things. We did this. OK, so we completed the patient service. Then they have to update the health record. Again, this is a health record that might live in their system, but we have rights to import it to our system, or they might choose to just document on our system. Once that's done, it's on the record, and they get paid immediately. So very different than even swiping a Visa, which takes at least a month to get paid, and they're taking 3% off the top. So anytime that you swipe a card at a provider's office, or one day when you accept credit cards, you're losing at least 3% right now. Because of how we're designed and the efficiency of the system, we can cut that in half and charge 1.5%. So it's very affordable. There's no membership fees. You may have heard of something like ZocDoc before for booking. They charge an annual, a monthly membership fee. So this is at no cost to the patient or the provider. There's simply just a transactional commission at the point of service. That's it. We can turn on the lights again, and I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah.
The app is free.
App is free.
How do you make money?
Transactional commission, just like Amazon makes money. One day, we will launch a premium service, which would be a little bit more concierge. We could do some coaching, but first phase is free.
A couple questions.
Yes, sir.
So if the patient fails to scan in, but goes through the normal appointment, how can the doctor collect?
They can't. It's incumbent upon the front office staff to make sure that you scan in.
Okay, second question. If the patient, they have to finish checking all the boxes for the doctor to be paid, correct?
Yeah.
Until they finish that
Yeah.
start. What if the patient goes through appointment, closes the app, that's it?
Yeah, so the way blockchain contracts work, there's something called smart contracts, and essentially allows you to put in a lot of things that basically, when they click into place, you release it. So the first part is you've selected someone. That's on your side, right? And you have to pay. That's your part of the contract. It's coming out of your wallet. It goes and sits in there. It's not really escrow like a bank account, but it sits there kind of sitting on the blockchain, right? And you have to check off those other two boxes. There could be a timestamp on it. So if we know that you went and you showed up, the money is not yours anymore. It's going to be released. We could also incentivize providers to finish their EHR record in a certain amount of time. Yeah.
How does it communicate with, let's say, they could be using Spruce, they could be using Atlas, they can be using Epic. Who knows what they're using? How does that communicate with your phone? Is that a simple, automatic process? Do they need to buy ancillary software to do those conversions?
Yeah, so, and I have this discussion with my CTO all the time, and our goal is not to modify any of our applications, right? They can use us if they want. We don't necessarily, if we start integrating with every system, we'll just be working for every practice, right? So there are companies like the one that we want to work with and that we've started to talk to for the EMR component that will do the integration for us. That's not something that we're doing on our side. That's a company in and of itself, EMR integration.
One more question.
Yeah, okay. One more question. You want to talk after?
You mean that the doctors do two EMRs?
No, because they would just use theirs. Ultimately, though, if you think about how like Grubhub works, they are running a parallel system for your orders, and they have their own app, they have their own screens, and that's all happening. Really, more or less, the only point of an EMR is for billing. The patient record can really sit anywhere, and if the provider and the patient always have access to it, it doesn't really matter which system it's in. Yeah.
That was my question too. What's the incentive for physicians to do it if they have to enter information twice?
Yeah, they wouldn't have to information.
I'm going to be around. We want to keep going through it. And so Joshua, next. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hey,